Hi, I figured I'd upload a video, but it hasn't been that long, right? I'm back. So things in Rocket League have changed a lot. We've got more game modes, the game's gone free to play, got plenty of new cars, and much more. But there's a question that continues to be asked. What is the best car in Rocket League? Now, I may have discussed this quite some time ago, but there have been some major changes to all of the cars since that video was made. As of making this video, there are over 75 car bodies in game, which is a huge difference from the much smaller car body selection in my last best car video. And I certainly can't go over every car, but thankfully, things have been somewhat simplified due to a major change made by the developers Psyonix. You see, before, most cars had their own unique hitbox. That is, the invisible box around your car that indicates collision. Instead of hundreds of different hitboxes, Psyonix decided to fit each car within a preset of one of 6 hitboxes. The hitbox categories are Breakout, Dominus, Hybrid, Plank, Octane, and Merc. Each one of these hitbox categories has their own unique specification, and each car within these categories uses those very same specifications, which means you can now think of each car as a skin, due to the fact that other than visuals, there is no difference between cars that use the same hitbox. While this change isn't my favorite, it does make it much easier to explain the differences between the 6 hitbox types. Simply put, each hitbox has a different length, height, and width than the other hitbox types. This can get a bit confusing when discussing hitboxes, since most of them are named after a car, but as you can see, no hitbox stands first in all categories, with each category having their own pros and cons. Now remember, all cars in the game fit into one of these 6 categories, and looking at the cars in these categories as they currently stand, it almost looks like there are some favorites. So why would someone choose one hitbox over another? What benefit comes from a hitbox being longer, wider, or taller? Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. For things like driving or aerials, all cars have the same acceleration, the same max speed, same car rotation, and they all fly at the same speed. Now, many players feel that certain cars rotate faster in the air when compared to others, but this can usually be explained by the visual differences between cars. A smaller car versus a larger one may look to you like it weighs more or that it takes more time to rotate, and in most cases, it's just a placebo. When it comes to car turning radius, I hesitate to mention this because in most cases, there is no noticeable difference, but technically, different hitbox types do handle differently on the ground. Certain hitboxes have a turn radius that turns faster earlier on, while others might start slow but turn sharper throughout a turn, and it would be too complex to explain in this video, but just know that in most cases it's a difference of 1% or 2. But for other mechanics, your car choice can matter significantly. Like when it comes to dribbling, the shorter in height a hitbox is, the easier it is to get that ball on top of your car. But sharper turns can be easier with taller hitboxes, since in many situations they won't bounce over the top of your car. The wider your hitbox, the easier it is to balance the ball on top of your car when moving it left or right, but it won't shift the ball side to side as quickly as a thinner hitbox. The longer and wider your hitbox, the greater freedom you're gonna have with car flicks. And of course, we can't forget the added benefit that taller hitboxes set the ball higher compared to other hitboxes, which gives you a greater chance of getting the ball over your opponents. And this perfectly shows how your preference can impact your decision on choosing what hitbox to go with. When it comes to things similar to bounce dribbles, they can be easier with taller hitboxes, as the additional height gives you more time to hit the ball after it's bounced off the ground. For defense, all car types have their positives and their negatives. Taller cars are easier for quick reactions since they require little necessary movement in order to stand tall, whereas wider or longer hitboxes have to pull back, but in the end can sometimes take up more space in the net. Another discussion I've seen that a lot of people don't seem to fully understand is when stating things like longer hitboxes can reach the ball sooner. Funny enough, a longer hitbox doesn't always mean a car is that much longer in the front. A car that's hitbox is longer often puts some of that length towards the back. For wall play, just like bounces on the ground, the taller the car's hitbox, the larger the grace period you have to hit that ball on the wall. Taller hitboxes allow for more opportunities to make contact with the ball without jumping. This is one major perk that I feel many pro-level players utilize not only offensively, but defensively, as it provides a bit more of a safety net when trying to hit those awkward wall hits. For flip resets, funny enough, thinner and shorter hitboxes should, in theory, be easier to get resets with. This is because wider or longer hitboxes have their wheels further apart, and because of the curvature of the ball, smaller hitboxes require less precision to make contact with all 4 wheels. There's so much more I could go on about, but now that we've discussed many of the pros and cons, why do some cars stand out from the rest? Looking at the number of cars in each hitbox category, I think to most it would seem pretty clear where the favorites are. But we obviously have no way of knowing what the most popular car is without Psyonix releasing the actual numbers. But I mean, the Octane and its hitbox are everywhere. Look at the pro scene. Believe it or not, since Season 1, every single championship final has had at least 2 Octanes on each team, all the way up until Season 8, where those Octanes were actually replaced with the Fennec, which itself is technically within the Octane hitbox category. And while the Octane still dominates as the most used car by pro players in the RLCS, the Fennec has gained enough popularity that it overtook the Dominus in Season 8 as the runner-up of the most used car in the final. Now, this change may not seem very important, but it shows a shift in more car diversity, until we take a look at hitbox categories and realize that the Octane hitbox is still dominating, while certain hitboxes are rarely, if ever, used. Let's face it, the Octane is the mascot of Rocket League, so it makes sense why the Octane is probably, more than likely, the most popular car. It is literally everywhere. It is usually the first thing you see when booting up Rocket League, and it makes its way into nearly every single official advertisement for Rocket League. So we've talked about popularity, and it's been made pretty clear that the Octane hitbox, and to a lesser extent, hitboxes like the Dominus and Plank are pretty popular. But why? Why these cars? Why these hitboxes? Well, the Octane is the default car for players, literally the first car you play with. This had an impact on many of those who started early on in Rocket League's life, and many of those players got used to the look and feel of the car. And the Dominus was the first DLC car released alongside the Takumi back in 2015. It was only 37 days after the game launched, which gave players plenty of time to grab the newest thing and start getting used to it before getting fully hooked on the Octane. Additionally, the Dominus and Plank hitboxes have been seen being very commonly used with popular freestylers in the Rocket League community, and that influence adds to its popularity. Influence is a huge part of what makes these cars popular, or at least makes us perceive them as popular. Now, unfortunately, just because a car has popularity with high-level or pro players does not make it the most popular or the most useful for certain players. It can mostly be said that the more recent high-level meta is currently favoring the Dominus, the Octane, or the Fennec. But in other areas, for instance, like the freestyling community, flat hitboxes such as the Dominus, Breakout, and Plank hitboxes can at times be more popular. A car's style is something that may also influence an individual's choice. But when I look at the Octane, it doesn't really scream style to me. Its hitbox doesn't fit the car perfectly either, and with the changes to the hitbox system, you would think that there would suddenly have been a burst of popularity in other cars with the Octane hitbox. And while the Fennec has seen a bump in popularity, it's clear that at least in high-level play, the Octane will remain champion for a very long time. Visually, it may not look the closest to its hitbox, but that's preferential. For instance, I'm sure that not many of you would want to play with a rectangular car that's literally the exact same shape as its hitbox, but at the same time, you wouldn't want something that's so far away from the hitbox that it's incomprehensible. I suppose for many, the Octane is that in-between, but that doesn't stop other cars from being used either. Even with professional level players, you do get the strange, odd car choice. And at the end of the day, there's just 6 hitbox categories, with plenty of skins to choose from, an ever-expanding library of options for you to choose based on your preferences. So yes, as much as you all may hate this answer, it truly does come down to preference. For certain styles of play, there may be cars that are more beneficial, but picking a car that plays to your strengths, your weaknesses, and your visual preferences is much more important. And I hope this video has helped you make a decision of what car you find best suited for your preferences. Without getting too much into it, no, I'm not dead. And yes, I'm back to uploading videos. To say that the past few years have been messy would be an understatement. But I want to thank my fans, my viewers, and everyone who has supported me along the way. So thank you. I hope this video has helped, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.